So this week I have Ivan and Nicole with me, and they are known as the Drop Top Teardrop, and you can find them on Instagram. I'll put a link to their account in the description below the video. But I met Ivan and Nicole this summer at nuCamp, and I just fell in love with them, really, honestly, from the start. They're just a neat couple, and they have a really sweet tag, and I'm going to show you some video of that. But they do an extensive amount of travel in their tag, and I thought it would be great for you guys to get a chance to know them, and also just to learn from their experience since they do such extensive travel. So welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. I think one of the first things we told you when we met at nuCamp was that you're one of our idols, because when we were getting started last year, there was no content online. It was really hard to learn about the space, and you had probably the most videos that we could find on tabs and the changes and just learning everything. And so we just wanted to come up and say hi and say thank you for doing that, for doing this. So
yeah,
that's too kind. I know what you're talking about, though. I'm not a crier. But I did find the same to be true when I bought my tab. That's actually how I got into creating content. I started with blog posts, and then I hit this point last year. I was like, I really need to do video. People want video, so that's sort of how I ended up on YouTube.
Nice.
But I really loved meeting you guys. Everybody I talked to asked me, have you met Ivan and Nicole? And even if they didn't know your names, it was like, Ivan in his socks. And
Ivan, guy with the beard, girl with the hair.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, aren't they great? So I was really excited to bring them on and just introduce you. So tell me how you guys met and how you got started with the tag life, so to speak. Hashtag tag life, is that a hashtag?
It should
be.
Make it a hashtag.
Hashtag nuCamp life.
Tag your it is definitely one.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
So we met 3.5 years ago. My sister got married to one of Ivan's best friends, and so they had a wedding cruise, and Ivan was super excited about it, of course.
It's another story for another video, but
there weren't many people on the cruise. We hit it off, and then I was at the time living in New England, working in Rhode Island, and he was living in Miami, working as a consultant, so a lot of traveling. So we actually kind of met in travel and continued getting to know each other in that way. So we would meet halfway. So we did a trip to DC, and we both flew to the middle point to meet each other, and then eventually I moved back to Miami. We were together for a few years before COVID hit. I was already working remotely. He was traveling. And so when COVID started, we were just living in a really small apartment in Miami. And you want to give some insight?
Yeah, it felt like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Right? Like you roll out of bed, and it's different, I think, for the people that went through it, that had a property and had some outdoor space. We had a balcony, and you're like afraid to go in the elevator because you just, at that point, nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But the only trips that we took were going out to the grocery store like 2 or 3 times a week because we love to cook. So travel was always something that we were both excited about. But honestly, I was traveling so much to different cities that it was very much the city travel experience, right? You fly to an airport of a big city, you take an Uber, you stay at a nice hotel, you go find the restaurants everyone recommends, what's the cocktail bar that people like to go to, what's something cool about this city, and then you kind of move on. And it felt somewhat cookie cutter at some point. And I had always thought about going to national parks, but when you only have 2 weeks of vacation a year, and you're like, do I go to Europe, or do I go to New York, or do I fly into some small airport, rent a car, drive for 5 hours, and like stay in a tent? And nothing wrong with that. It just sounded like a lot of work. So eventually I started planting the seeds of like, hey, look at these YouTube videos. Isn't that cool? What do you think? And just seeing where Nicole was at. And then we had some friends that invited us camping in July. So 4th of July weekend. It was her first time camping, period. Yep. And I was like, this could go either way. And so I tried my hardest to, walk softly, not push for anything, and let her have an authentic experience and see what she genuinely thought of it. She loved it. And then I just kept playing more videos. And then finally I had an opportunity to take a leave from work, and I said, what should we do? And that's when we started like, well, what is a trailer? what are my trailer options? How does that work? We start contacting places.
Should we get a van? Should
right.
we upgrade our tow vehicle? What should we do?
We need a car that we can tow with. So it was 1 month crash course of basically how do you go from being a city slicker to being on the road. And we called some manufacturers. We called a lot of dealers, and nobody had inventory, or the lead time went from 3 months to a year. So that was, we eventually found the Jeep, and then we had a car but no trailer. And then we eventually found a couple that wanted to be even more rustic than living out of a tag. They wanted to do a lot of rooftop tent off-roading type of experiences. And they were willing to part ways with their tag, and we didn't have a lot of options, and we said,
let's do it.
Let's do it.
So this was last summer.
This was October
2020.
Oh, so October, even more recent. Yeah. Wow. So you don't even have 1 year with your tag.
We don't have a year yet.
Not quite.
We got to plan the 1 year celebration.
So why did you decide to go with a trailer? You said you considered van life. You obviously tried tent camping. What was it about a trailer, and specifically a tag, that seemed like the right fit?
So we started with looking at tabs. So we were...
actually...
What?
We started with a competitor.
Well, we're looking at... Oh, well, yeah. Our initial dream was like the Airstream base camp, because we wanted something that was like with the panoramic window, and it has that sleek outside.
A lot of space to work.
It's a neat design.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And really then we just started looking at the market, and they were upwards of like $50,000. And I'm like, wow, that's a big commitment for two people who have never done this and aren't sure if they're going to fall in love with it.
Or you could find one used maybe for $35,000, but a private sale on a trailer for two people that had never towed anything before seemed even scarier than a $50,000 note. So it served its job in being like the inspiration. Like it was something that you look at, you're like, that's really cool, that we're going to do it, and we're going to go all the way. But then when, reality kind of sets in, and it's like, maybe that's not the best decision for us right now. We still liked the idea that it left behind, but just not, we didn't need that product anymore.
Yeah. Right. So we were looking at, like, in the Intech line, we looked at the tabs and such, and then we were actually very limited in our options, given that we were looking in October of 2020. It's the COVID market. So if any dealer had something, they had maybe one, and it was marked up like 8,000 or whatever the amount was over sticker. So we're actually going to close in on a Tab 320, and it was in Albuquerque, and we eventually ran the numbers, and it was just like a lot more than I think we were ready for. And so Ivan kind of just proposed, like, why don't we go smaller? Like, why don't we actually not go with the bathroom? Let's just go a little bit more minimal, a little smaller. And I think the biggest convincing factor for me is it was the price point and the fact that it would be easier and smaller to tow. Like more the tag is much more manageable and friendly for someone who's never done this before. Even now I look at the tabs and I'm like, wow, that's a big thing. And I can't imagine like hitching that every day and like working with that. Yeah, I will eventually grow into that. But I think for someone who is starting out, the tag actually seemed much friendlier. So.
And you have, is it the basic edition?
This is the most basic base edition of anything you can get from nuCamp. So it's a standard edition. We thought it was only made for 1 year, but we were told they made it for 2 years. They tend to make it when there's less demand. So clearly, probably not making a comeback anytime soon. But at some point in between 2018 and 2019, there was a little slow. And so we talked to PJ from Princess Craft, and she was one of the ones that was also whispering to them, like, maybe have something at a lower price point. And they came up with this. And we thought it was really cool because the person that we bought it from had already made some changes and added some things. Yeah. So we kept some of that. We took some of that stuff out and then just kind of made it our own as we lived through it.
Which I think is the shining part about it. It's more of a DIY kind of trailer. We actually saw 2 SEs at nuCamp, and they look completely different from ours, which is really cool. Like
one couple doesn't barely cook at all.
yeah.
So they wanted the kitchen to be just the countertop because they want the space. They don't need the cooler, they don't need the fridge, they don't need the cookware, they don't need any of that stuff because they don't really
Right.
cook.
We met another good friend, Martha, whom likes more of that continuous flow. So she actually went with like a mosquito screen to separate the kitchen and the bedroom, so you get that kind of flow, versus we have more of like a wooden wall to separate the two. So it's really cool seeing how you could take a really base model and add your own bells and whistles to it and customize it exactly how you want it to.
But as far as like product category, and I'm a consultant, so I use words that people are like, what? But when you're looking for a trailer, we looked at Class C's, and they're very expensive.
Yeah.
We looked at Class A's, and immediately we're like, okay, we're out of that price point. And we looked at vans.
Even vans are very...
But, right, like, it's hard to find converted vans.
Yeah.
Like, people that have done it and converted it. So normally you'll have a van from a major manufacturer, and again, those are just like we looked at the Revel van, and that thing is as much as a Class C. And so, you know, because of all that, and to jump in, not just the financial thought, but also like, what if we don't like this?
Right.
What if 2 months later we're like, you know what, this sucks, we missed the city, let's go back to the city. You're paying a big penalty for that. And so when we looked at it, then definitely it narrows it down to like, we're gonna tow. Then I was like, can I convince you to get a truck? And you're like, no truck. And I go, well, so that narrows down how much we can tow.
Right.
And so now we're in a subset where we ended up in the teardrop space. And then the question was like, are you okay not having a bathroom? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so these are the options. And she's like, I like that one, that one, that one. And then it was inventory.
Right.
So that was our process.
Those are kind of the layers.
Right.
Yeah.
But we knew we didn't want to do tent camping because it's just, if you're going to do that for a long period of time, and we've seen people do it. We even saw at the last campsite somebody that was doing bike touring.
Oh, yeah.
And had all his camp stuff. I see him on the bike and goes to check in. I'm like, what's he checking in? I'm like, oh, he's got all his stuff with him. Like, he's on a bike tour. Like, that's amazing. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want to do car camping. We didn't want to go into a pop-up because we knew we were going to be in places with bears and all kinds of elements and things. So hard, you need a hard surface, and teardrops are kind of like the best way to do it, in our opinion.
Yeah. And then seeing it in person, the build quality, I think, is what really sold us. Like, even if the standard edition doesn't have all the built-ins and the bells and whistles, you know at the end of the day, the architecture of what you're buying is not going to leave you stranded. Like, it ultimately is a nuCamp product. Like, I'm safe. I know that nothing's just going to, like, the walls aren't going to fall off. It's not just going to leave me on the side of the road. Like, ultimately, it's...
Yeah, and a lot of the interiors, too, that we saw, we were kind of in disbelief that, like, some travel trailers are made in 2021, and you look at the inside, and the inside cabinetry and everything looks like it's from, I don't know, the 80s or the 70s. I'm just like, you haven't made an effort to update. And so we're on in one dealer lot where we saw like a newer Lance or something. I'm like, wow, you're actually using some of the hardware and some of the designs that people would want to see nowadays, or that I would expect from a newer model. But besides that, you don't really see a lot of people that have an interior. You open, you go in, you go, oh, this is really nice. This feels like home.
And that's what you get with nuCamp, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's adorable. Your tag is adorable. And the quality, you know, you look at the cupboards, you're like, yep, they're well built. You know, you're not going to have to staple them back to the wall.
Yep. We've read many horror stories.
I think we all have. Well, that's cool. So this is Ivan and Nicole's kitchen. You can see they've put up the cool tile backsplash, and they added this rail, which Nicole told me is electrical conduit, and they painted it black, and they found some corner brackets for it on Amazon. Let me get in there close so you can see those corner brackets. And I didn't even realize at first, but this is their sink. And they did the sink that sits above the counter because it saves them more storage space. So they have more space for their water tank right here. And then they went with a drinking water faucet because with the tag, they don't have a hot water heater, so it just needs to be either on or off. So it's a very nice, simple, elegant solution. And they've got some really nice storage going on here.
This is our little air fryer for when we have short
Oh, nice.
Now with these tags, the SCs, the air conditioning unit actually sticks out. So this is all air conditioning. We kind of had just a wall of useless space, so we actually made this into prep.
Oh.
So you have added cutting space or prepping space when you're cooking.
That's brilliant.
Ended up with a butcher block countertop because it was a little bit easier to work with for us, and we just like the look and feel of it. And another great hack, if you're gonna do any mods, these are two really quick and easy ones. First one is this peel and stick backsplash. Really simple to apply. Really, it's just a matter of lining things up, unsticking it, and attaching it to the back wall. And the other really easy hack is on the roof. So this is just a wallpaper we bought on Amazon for, I want to say about $8. You just line it up, and it really transforms the space, since this is just plain white up top.
That's very cool. This is a great idea to put a boot rack or boot shoe rack.
This is like an IKEA little I don't know, they sell them at IKEA. I'm not really sure what they're
mud
called,
tray.
but...
I know Rubbermaid makes them. You can get different brands.
Yeah.
But to put it on your fender is really a smart idea.
It keeps the fender safe, and it keeps your shoes away from all the bugs that could be on the floor as well.
Or snakes.
Or snakes. Yeah, we don't want that.
I'm going to peek inside, and they've got this cute license plate bedding, and very cool. They've got a heater in the middle there, and it looks like a weather radio with emergency light. I used to have one of those. And looks like some gaming equipment hanging out there. They put some, is it storage over there by the wheel well?
So these, we actually built these cabinets as well just to give added storage. They double as working space as well. So
oh, look how cool that is.
You can work at least a little more comfortably looking out the window.
And then coming around to the front, the SE edition, standard edition, has these huge storage cabinets.
Really
and then the person they bought it from, Nicole told me earlier, added the shelves. So they've got these great storage containers.
Just easy IKEA bins that you can slip in and out and put all your clothes in.
And then, very cool, you see some personalization going on there.
Yeah.
And then on this side is another little storage work space, nightstand area. And then underneath...
Yes, we have built a whole underbed storage, so you can sneak in, you can grab anything that you need, and then you just put your pillow back up.
Yeah, so the modular cushions are really a great key to that, because then you're not lifting up the whole bed.
Right.
You're just lifting up the sections that you want to access.
Yeah. And another note about the standard editions, they actually do come with the Stargazer window if that's something you're interested in. Not all of them have it. So some of them have the Stargazer, some of them don't. They come in gray and white, I believe, so you have still some ability to customize there too.
Very cool. Everyone's packing stuff up. They're getting ready to pull out, and they've got their bike rack. Looks like their bikes are covered with tarps. We've had some rainy weather. And then if you're curious, Ivan and Nicole have a Jeep Wrangler 4-door. Looks like the new JL Wranglers.
Yeah.
And they have the Sahara, which is actually the model I had when I had a Jeep. So very cool.
So with the standard edition tags, they do not come with a decal like the regular tags do. So this is actually something that we ordered from nuCamp. But keep in mind, if you have a specific design or even a specific color that you would like your trailer to be in, you can actually message nuCamp and they will customize it for you, which we didn't know. We thought you were just stuck to standard white or gray. They can do whatever color and whatever graphic you actually want. So I think another point I wanted to make too, really quick, is when we bought the trailer, we didn't know that we were buying into the nuCamp community and the nuCamp family.
That's something something that you didn't know. That's
yeah,
something that
we didn't know that, and we didn't really become aware of that until UCamp, until we toured the factory, until we started meeting other people in the community that reassured us that there's other people out there doing really similar things. And so it's not your job to figure it all out. It's your job just to ask questions and lean into the community and say, what have you guys done for this? How have you guys stored your shoes? How have you guys stored the bikes? How have you done this? people have probably asked those questions before, and there's such a large community there to help as long as you're willing to lean into it too.
That is really a great point. And I had the same experience. I wasn't buying a trailer to buy into a community.
Yeah.
I didn't think I needed more friends, right?
Exactly.
I mean, honestly. And I have been blown away by the community, their help, their support. But
Absolutely.
I feel like the nuCamp owner community is one of the best online communities. The people are so great. And I had this sort of aha moment earlier this year. I saw a Peloton ad and it said never bike alone, and I thought, you know what, it's true when you own a tab too. Even if you're solo travelers, you never really camp alone, because the online community is great and you always run into people. I ran into these guys this week, which was awesome. It was totally unplanned, and when you come across other owners, there's just this natural connection. So.
And everyone has their own story, so it's really nice to kind of share how those experiences are different. Even though you own the same product, the stories that you have with that product are so different.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I could sit and talk to you all day.
I know.
But I know people don't listen to 2-hour videos very often, so we'll cut it short. But thanks again. I hope we bump into each other or plan meetups more, because it's been a blast having them here this week.
Yeah.
And safe travels.
Oh, thank you.